In some aspects, I've always been a confident person. My mother tells a story about how she came to pick me up from school one day when I was 7, and I was leading the children around the playground with a song that we had made up during recess, and I was the leader of the band, and all of us were in a big band. So my mother will say that I was always a leader. Even if you have a natural leadership ability, there are always going to be moments of non-confidence, but I am comfortable enough to say I know enough and it's okay if I don't know this. Understanding that you won't know all of the answers doesn't necessarily take away from your confidence. There is a confidence that we will find the answer, and maybe that just comes down to bare bones faith rather than, any kind of schooling or any kind of knowledge base. It's more so knowing that I will work hard enough until I find the answer. In my work life, I've had to overcome my nature to work with what I have. And to see that as a blessing, if that makes sense. So I am a 5'9" black woman with a Canadian accent, very strong voice, and that automatically instills authority within me in terms of the way I speak and the way I communicate to others. I received some amazing feedback from one of my managers when I worked at IBM. He told me that, Melanie, you're so on when you're on, that when you're off, you turn the light out in the room and you have to make sure that you're on. That boss really did explain to me that, in terms of the presence, the natural presence that I do have and what I'm using, as I'm using my power for a force for good, if that makes sense. The most pivotal moment in my career was when I became extremely ill. In hindsight, I could see it coming. In hindsight, you always do. So you're not as effective anymore at your job, you're a bit more tired. I wasn't as passionate as I used to be, and I had to end up taking 4 months off of work. That was the most pivotal moment because I started to understand what I was giving of myself to the job. I understood that I have to input as much as I output. And so what that meant for me is that incorporating exercise, regular exercise, also incorporating side projects as well, things that are very different from my day job. They make me think differently. Those kinds of things, they input when I have to output so much. So from the moment that I step into the office, I am on, and I have to learn how to turn off. At work, I've never had a formal mentor. Not because the mentorship programs weren't offered, and not because there are, not so many amazing women at the firms that I've worked for, but more so because I was always a more personal relationship kind of person. For example, Baroness Amos, I met her, I saw her, I told her blatantly, I like the fact that you wear bright colors and big earrings and the international level of influence that you hold. And so she was kind enough to meet me. Sarah Deves, who's also an Everywoman member, I can't believe now I'm sharing a platform with her, but she is my mentor. I remember speaking to her and saying, you are a senior woman in banking, and I had just started out in financial services in this country. She was CEO of Coots at the time, but she took the time to speak to me about her career and her challenges, and particularly challenges for women in financial services. And wealth management as well. I would suggest that you have a portfolio of mentors, a portfolio based on what you want to be, what you envision for your life, and what you love in that other person, what you want to emulate, and then you speak to them on that basis. The female role models I look to now are women who have managed to turn their passions into profits. So women who will do it anyway. They will do it until they die. However, they've managed to turn it into a business offering. They have brought it to market, and now they're getting paid to do what they love. Networking outside of my career industry has always afforded me privileges within my career industry, if that makes sense. I think that when you hang out with people who are just so passionate and about what they do in different circles, they give you new ways to think about things. You want to relate to people on a person-to-person intimate basis. And if the only thing I spoke to people about was financial services, then quite frankly it would be a bit of a boring conversation. But because I can speak to them about food and wine and plays and movies and acting and music and all of the other things that are interesting to me, then that makes a person-to-person relationship. I always try to be well groomed when I come to work. I always try to ensure that, people are able to listen to the content without being too distracted with my clothing. However, on the other hand, I also want to remain pure to my own individuality. I don't look very good in black, blue, and gray, and those are those are colors that my industry are known for. However, even though I will dress with bright colors, I'll balance it out, and my skirts are always going to hit the knees, and they're never very tight. And you do have to consider your image when you're communicating a message in business. I have several tools to manage my stress. Number one is a notepad by the bed. I can be an insomniac when thoughts take over my head. If I get it down on paper, then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Sometimes ideas come to me and I want to really kind of flesh them out, and there's just so many things pinging and whizzing across my brain, and I like working with mind maps. It's not a project plan, it's more so get all of this out, get all of the thoughts out, get all of the creativity out onto a piece of paper, and then I can start organizing it and working with it afterwards. I'm quite religious about taking notes as well, because having to remember something adds to the stress of your day. The more I take notes is the less that my mind has to work at remembering stuff. My mind just has to work at creating new thoughts and creating new structures and solving problems, rather than thinking about, oh, I have to remember something. Don't be afraid to change. Today yesterday I wanted to be a management consultant. Tomorrow I may want to be a mother. The next day I may want to be an entrepreneur. Particularly with women, we have this problem that what we are today is what we envision ourselves being in 20 years. And that's not the case. So sometimes it's about giving yourself the leeway to say, you know what, this is what I want today. And it might change, but just be content that and just know that you're on the path for you and the path that you're supposed to be on. And you will grow into a woman that you cannot possibly imagine today. So don't limit yourself by your todays.